Howdy. An hour ago or something, there has been a large quake in Greenland, 10 kilometers in depth, which doesn't tell us basically anything because many quakes are just marked at this same depth. And it's this kind of a basic depth announcement, or however you want to call it. It's all pixelated. We cannot really see what's there. And let's have a quick look at the weather maps. Because not only do we have elevated geomagnetic activity, CMEs are hitting Earth and stuff like this. Some of them are probably still approaching. And as always, they talk about the plasma speed, about the polarity of the plasma, about the density. But no one talks about the constituency of the CMEs. For example, what I really would like to know is the sulfur content of CMEs, because I think the sulfur content of CMEs has a very big influence on how the CME impact will affect Earth. And for those who think I am paranoid, I just tell you something. You have no idea what's going on. And for those who think I suffer from pareidolia, it's just probably that you don't have the capability to see what I see. Which is in a way tied to a certain amount of knowledge. You need to know what you're looking at in order to see what's there. You know? It's basically very simple. But anyway, I had a small interruption. Yeah, it is simple. You need to understand what you're looking at. Anyway, I noticed this very big weather pattern over Russia. And that's amazing. That's something very big. And it seems to be a high pressure system because of its rotation. And that's huge. And here we can still see the Balticane, which traveled way here, which brought some floods to some Baltic cities and stuff like that. And since we are looking at weather, I wanted to talk quickly still about water, because yeah, there's a lot of water in the atmosphere at the moment. Also here, it's finally raining. It wasn't really raining for many weeks. And it's all bouncing off the same area where it's usually bouncing from this side. Now the air comes from the other side, and this is a huge stream of energy that's very big. So whatever geological formation that creates some local magnetic vortices, they might be overpowered, but it doesn't really change the polarity of the geological occurrences, because they will either repel or take it in, the energy that's provided. And yeah, the water thing. I created a small video. I just wanted to make a small introduction still about what are we going to see in the video, because like I said, it's important to know what you're looking at in order to understand what you see. And we will start off here on the Pollack Lab site. research themes, the Pollock Laboratory centers largely on the identification of water's fourth phase, otherwise known as exclusion zone water. Easy water has many applications in nature and technology. Among the natural applications, the lab lays special emphasis on the role of easy water in health, including cell biology. There is also an historical emphasis on biological motion on the origin of life. Further, several technologies have emerged from the fundamental discoveries made in the laboratory, and a spin-off company called Fourth Phase Inc. has been formed to pursue those technologies. Below you will find summaries of the major themes of the lab. Easy water. Water has three phases, gas, liquid, and solid, but findings from our laboratory imply the presence of a surprisingly extensive fourth phase that occurs at interfaces. Yeah, I just want to make a quick note here, a side note, so to say. Like all the water in life, let's say animals and plants, it's all in the easy water state. But anyway, yeah, that's actually a very important point to understand. Actually, it's much more important than just a side note. It's a very profound thing to understand that all the water in us is in easy water state. At least. Anyway, this finding may have profound implication for chemistry, physics, and biology. Yes, it does. That's why I'm making this video. So here we have easy water. It forms in a hexagonal shape, and the different atoms tie to each other according to their polarity. So that's why we get the slight shift in that. And maybe it goes like that, all the way up. And also we have to understand that they can also move side to side slightly. So that's not a really stable thing. And I think because of this, that's the very reason why light gets refracted when it goes into the water. And it is also the same reason for why the water can penetrate very deep, because it has this pathway. Without this pathway, light couldn't go into the water. This builds a structure within the water. Okay? It is hexagonal in shape. It is easy water. I will put a link below to his page. You can go to read and watch the videos and stuff like that. But obviously, this seems to be true, that water has this kind of structure. And somehow I think this structure is always in the water. It's not just so, how to say, it's not visible or measurable or seen yet. But wherever you take water or find water, liquid water, doesn't matter if it's here or in the US or on the other side of the universe, it will quite likely exhibit the same structure. In other words, it is an omnipresent feature of water. So, now we have been talking about water in its liquid state. And obviously we can see it has this kind of a crystal lattice, a crystalline structure, which is also a circuitry. I hope you get the idea that water in the liquid state exhibits this kind of shape, which is hexagonal. Now let's go to the other side. Let's go to water in its frozen state. which is below zero. We are above zero before water gets into the gas state. Now let's go to the state when water is frozen. And I'm very aware, and it is done on purpose, that we are now watching at yet another doctor's work. Maybe I think Pollack is a professor. Doesn't matter. They're both scientists, and I'm not. But I explained at the beginning in the last video about the connection between science and witchery, which is so obvious in the Finnish language. So, Axios Denver. Denver is a nice place. There are many interesting people living in Denver. Anyway, this Colorado doctor photographs snowflakes in incredible detail. Yeah, it's a doctor who takes pictures of snowflakes. Every snowflake is unique, and few people know that better than Jason Persoff, an Aurora-based storm-chasing physician. Yeah, now that's interesting. Anyway, who snaps captivating close-ups of snow crystals? Why it matters? Each tiny flake tells a special story based on the atmospheric conditions it encounters in the half hour it takes to form and fall, Persoff says. So he's helping share those frame by frame. Yeah, why it matters? I made some time ago a video, why things matter. It is because of the transmutation of the elements. Like the example I made many times about crying. You get information, it gets transmutated within your body into something very real, and your body experience a discharge event and you're crying. You can see the tears, you can measure them. I really would like to have to measure once a tear you shed when your mind gets blown. I experienced this several times. It is an amazing feeling. Yeah. You'll feel different afterwards, tell you. But anyway, and a snowflake is basically the same principle. It's frozen, it gets charged negatively. And how else you would expect, because since we are talking about water, we get the hexagonal shape once again. So now let me show you this small video I created. So that's one of the snowflakes we just watched on that page. And in order to get some hexagonal, I took this kind of beehive thing, that's a screenshot from a bigger picture. And now if you zoom out, you can see probably the hexagonality better. So in other words, I just want to try to explain one thing. That's the crystalline structure of frozen water, which is hexagonal. And we can see, let's say, the cross, the inside. And when we go to the other side of the polarity, in this case it's plus degrees, we can see the outer side. And when we pause here at the sweet spot in the Goldilocks zone, we can see the whole thing. So in other words, It doesn't matter if it's frozen or liquid. Water exhibits structure, geometry, a crystalline shape. And this is why I think water is not a liquid. It is a crystal because it inherits a crystalline structure all the time, whether liquid or frozen. That's why it's a crystal and not a liquid. If this structure would disappear when it would freeze over, then my theory would be quite wrong. And if there wouldn't be any such thing as the hexagonal structure in easy water, my theory would be wrong. But we have both things. And we just need to put them together. It can't be too hard to put two things together, you know? 1 and 2 is 12. A hexagonal, and this shape we get 12. Yeah, numerology. There are 6 on the outer side and 6 in the inner side, so we have 12, which is 6 and 6. You need to put once two things together. Anyway, let me just share some other thoughts about something funny. Yeah, and the funny thing I'm going to talk about is the philosopher's stone. I've been reading some amount about that. I heard many things about it. It's a very great mystery. What is the philosopher's stone? And since a while, I'm thinking about or playing with the thought that should I share what I just somehow thought about the philosopher's stone? And yeah, I'm going to do it now. I will share with you a few things as a way, an introduction into what I think is the philosopher's stone. So, let's start off with Wikipedia. Yeah, YouTube likes Wikipedia. Yeah, and no, I didn't delete the comments. It wasn't me. Someone else. Someone who can read. Maybe he also listens. Or she. Or them. Greetings to them. Anyway, philosopher's stone. If you're listening, listen closely and make your own thoughts about that. The article is about the legendary substance. For other users, see the philosopher's stone, disambiguation. The philosopher's stone is a mythic alchemical substance capable of turning base metals such as mercury into gold and silver. It was also known as the tincture and the powder. Alchemists additionally believed that it could be used to make an elixir of life which made possible rejuvenation and immortality. For many centuries, it was the most sought goal in alchemy. The philosopher's stone was the central symbol of the mystical terminology of alchemy, symbolizing perfection at its finest, divine illumination, and heavenly bliss. Efforts to discover the philosopher's stone were known as the magnum opus. Great work, yes. So, obviously, there is a whole lot of work about it, what it is, and no one knows still. Let me show you something else. So this is the Wandering Alchemist, some blog. I didn't spend too much time with searching for some links. I'm not really prepared for that video or for this video. I just make it. Tria prima, 3 primes. First, sulfur. He who does not know the sulfur knows nothing, and cannot accomplish nothing, neither of medicine, nor of philosophy, nor of the secrets of nature. Paracelsus. I think he was a Swiss guy. I'm originally from Switzerland too. So we share at least one thing. Sulfur is the first element of the tria prima, or 3 primes, which also consists of the elements salt, body, greetings to Ben, and mercury, mind. So it's up to each one which element you choose. I choose sulfur a long time ago. You probably, if you have seen my videos about copper and stuff like that, you know that I've been talking about sulfur a lot. Yes, my microwave experiment with all the sulfur smoke and sulfur flames and stuff like that, burning stones, melting stones, plasma discharge events in the microwave and all this kind of stuff. Yes. I'm very intrigued with sulfur since quite a while. But anyway, sulfur in alchemy represents the soul of all materials and living things. In alchemy, sulfur is synonymous with consciousness and the expansion of thought. To the ancient alchemist, sulfur's properties are dryness, heat, masculinity, evaporation, expansion, and dissolution. Sulfur in the body is a key component in the making of proteins. Sulfur amino acids also play a major role in metabolism. Sulfur is present in all living tissues, body fluids, and skeletal material. This element is the third most abundant mineral in the human body. To the Greek alchemists, sulfur was the psyche, the soul of man. Sometimes in Greek philosophy, there is a link between sulfur and the logos, meaning divine thought or the origin of speech. In the Hebrew language, the word for soul is nepresh or nepesh. This word also translates to living being. To the alchemist, sulfur is the bridge that connects the body with mind. It is the understanding of sulfur's presence in all living things and materials that is fundamental in all alchemical processes. Sulfur is the key to unlocking the inner workings of the soul and consciousness. So now, that's the finished copper playlist. And I wanted to share something which relates to sulfur and geology, history, mythology, consciousness, and all the things, Like we have videos here, cosmic ray sulfur. And just came to my mind, for those who don't know, NASA's Curiosity rover discovers a surprise in Martian rock. These yellow crystals were revealed after NASA's Curiosity happened to drive over a rock and cracked it open on May 30th. Using an instrument on the rover's arm, scientists later determined these crystals are elemental sulfur. And it's the first time this kind of sulfur has been found on the red planet. Sulfur. Now back to my playlist, because I wanted to show you something before I go to show you something else. Let's see how that works. Sulfur is continuing. And no, wait a second. how does this work? A quick part of what I found when I followed this one guy's name. Yeah, actually, now I found the part, so just listen. And sulfur. So that's Ron Wyatt, and I think he passed. I'm not too sure, but I think he passed. I just learned about him yesterday, so I don't really know much about him. But anyway, he is discussing Sodom and Gomorrah. Now let's have a look of what he found. Exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The stuff crumbles to powder in your hands, sticks to your clothes. It's just pure ash. But it was, I guess, 1988. Miriam L. and I were out there, and she found this chunk of ash that had been broken open, and inside it there was a little cavity that looked just unbelievably like an eyeball. So we were kind of puzzled about that. But about a year later, we actually found sulfur balls, these spheres of sulfur, and where they had completely burned up, there was a cavity very similar, to this one that Marion L. had found a year before. Okay, we're down at Sodom and Gomorrah still. Right in front of you is these some unusual looking spots on this. Shows a layer of ash. It's not stone, it's ash. Now we'll move in for a close-up of this. And you can see that they're kind of circular shaped places. Now what we have found, and we'll move in a little closer here, is that inside each of these is sulfur. That is in most of them. Now the ones that do not have sulfur in them, and this one we just took a bunch of sulfur out and put it in our specimen bag. But the ones that don't have sulfur have a very black center where they have, where it's been very hot. So now we'll move in on this one where there is some sulfur still present. And back off just enough so you can see what we're up to here. And we'll go collect that sample in a bag. Before I started using this knife, it was very, very sharp. Okay, here this is, and we have collected some more, and it smells and tastes like sulfur, but we will have it analyzed. Okay, so there's a guy collecting sulfur balls in Sodom and Gomorrah, which is the brimstone, as been told in the Bible. It was raining brimstone, and obviously it did. So the ancients weren't crazy, they were describing actual stuff that went down. If you watched my Finnish copper playlist, you know that the copper ore here in Finnish is very similar, or actually the same stuff that you find in Cyprus. The island, which isn't too far from Sodom and Gomorrah, where many things went down. And the copper ore here in Finland is not only similar to what is found in Cyprus. Maybe in other places in the Middle East there's much more of the copper, but anyway, Cyprus is the place where the name copper derives from. There is also a lot of sulfides here in Finland and a lot of sulfur. And for example, the area, Outokumpu here, not too far, where we have the copper mine, and I made the videos and all that stuff. Yeah, the whole region is categorized as an allochthon, which means origin is not known. They don't know where it's from. It came from somewhere. And the evidence I found with the molten metal on top of the rocks and stuff like that, and also these pebbles. Yeah, that's not the best quality. Maybe that's not the sharpest part of the picture, but you can see there is metal in it. Here is metal. And I think there are different metals in those. There's not too much metal, but to some degree. And different materials. And we also have this yellow stuff here. And that's not even the yellow stone, that's more yellow. And of course you can see I cut them open and they are polished. So if you watch them from the outside, they look more like this. Let me show you an example. These are not brimstones. These are green stones. And this is how they look when they are somewhere, laying around and don't do anything. Maybe they might be dirty, but they don't look too interesting, I guess, for most people. But when you cut them open, yeah, that's also not the best quality. But you can see it's green. These are green stones, I call them. And the possible Mars meteorite I found, I could compare the black stuff to the black stuff of this stone, which is stromalotite, I think, or something. So I figured that this is not the same stuff, the black, that is found in the Mars meteorite. I just call it like that. Yes. Yeah, that's another pebble. That's the outside. And this is the inside. Yeah, that's another sharp picture, I guess. Or not too sharp. And if you would polish this even more or wetten, the colors would be much more intense. And the light color on the outside is only because when you smash this kind of material, like quartz, almost all the quartz pebbles you find in nature, they are white because they got smashed together, and they get white when they get smashed together. So here is the impact layer on the outer side, which got white due to impacts. That's why they don't look at first glance like any interesting thing. Like at this one. If you would cut this very thin into a thin layer, they would be easily light shining through, and I bet most of them would be rather green. But anyway, let's go back to the brimstones. And here in the middle we can see the yellow stuff. There's yellow and yellower stuff. But as we know, sulfur has different colors. When it burns, it's blue. It can be white, it can be yellow. When it's burned, it can turn black. Often it turns also red. So it has many colors and also many functions. So, and it is also very important to life. If you want to make research about the importance of sulfur in life, DNA, and all kinds of stuff, you will only figure out that it is so. Without sulfur, there's no life. With no life, there is no consciousness. So, in other words, this is basically the philosopher's stone. Yeah, it's a sulfur-bearing rock. Because without the sulfur, you don't get life. There is no observer or something. There is no such thing like this kind of consciousness that we understand as humans being consciousness, because there's questions the sun consciousness or conscious, planet Earth conscious. Yes, they are, but we cannot perceive it in any way because we are so limited with our little brains in this big world that there's no chance that we could ever get a grasp of the magnitude of the consciousness of Earth or the Sun or the universe. So we are very confined in our very little box, which is called Earth. So, despite this has been a very long problem for many, what's the philosopher's stone? But I think this could be the solution. It has been there all the time, because sulfur is the element of spirit. If we cannot explain something easily or so, like how to explain it in simple terms, or make many examples in order to undermine your point, or you need numbers in order to undermine your point, you have a problem. And if we take the Occam razor, that the most simple and most logic explanation is probably the right one, then I think these brimstones, beside all the other rocks that contain sulfur, are basically the philosopher's stone. Yeah, they are containing sulfur, which is the element of spirit. Without life, there is no spirit. Without sulfur, there is no life. Yeah, take that, YouTube. This is the philosopher's stone. No need to search anymore. Without sulfur, no life. No life, no consciousness. No consciousness, no spirit. Sulfur is the element of spirit. And the element of fire, which is the light at the end of the tunnel, which is granted for every one of us. Because at the moment of death, there's a huge spike in electromagnetic energy in our brains, in the gamma ray spectrum. So if there's a spike in energy, and in the gamma ray spectrum, which is tied to our vision, we need to expect that it is the actual light we see, because you are the light. Yeah. Things can be very simple. But anyway, I leave it here. Make your own thoughts about that. Make research if you don't know something. And yeah, this is just what I think. So, yeah, there would be some other things to talk still about. Iceland is about to blow, probably in a few places at once. And yeah, let's leave it here, because this could be endlessly continued. But I guess that's enough. Now you know what's the philosopher's stone. You can do something else now. Thanks. Bye.